Whether you listen to Christian music or not, you've probably heard the name Forrest Frank. He was named New Artist of the Year at the 2024 Dove Awards, and with over 7 million monthly listeners, he's somewhat of an anomaly. Now, why do I say that? Because I think Forrest Frank has hit a niche that all of us Christians have been waiting for a very long time. Traditionally, Christian music hasn't exactly been with the times. It's typically been reserved for worship music, which, while extremely important, isn't exactly relevant to our modern day culture. Now, I know that our motivation as believers shouldn't be popularity, but I also know that we should be shrewd with the gifts we've been given. Luke chapter 16 tells us about the parable of the dishonest manager, who was caught wasting his master's possessions and lost his occupation as a result. In order to preserve himself and avoid being poor, he began making deals with his master's debtors, giving them discounts on what they owed and pocketing the money. However, verse 8 reads, "The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light." See, the word shrewdness in this passage is oftentimes misinterpreted and given a negative connotation that it doesn't necessarily deserve. After all, the master commended the dishonest manager's shrewdness, because all shrewdness really means is having the powers of sharp judgment or being astute. So what this passage is trying to communicate is that we should be shrewd with the gifts that we have, so that we can use them to advance God's kingdom. And I think that's exactly what Forrest Frank is doing with his musical gift. As we all know, music is extremely influential in today's society. Therefore, we as believers should be using it to advance God's kingdom. Forrest has a unique ability to make music that's relevant and current to our modern day society while also remaining pure and glorifying to God. He makes music that's engaging to unbelievers and believers alike. So Forrest has done something unique here. He's made music that's engaging and entertaining to our modern day culture, and he's also able to share the gospel with them at the same time. This is the kind of shrewdness that I think we as believers should aspire to exemplify. It's very common for us as Christians to avoid avenues to share the gospel just for the sake of being set apart. We can oftentimes mistakenly think that because culture's doing it, it must be inherently sinful. But this isn't always the case. Popular genres of music such as pop, R&B, and even rap aren't necessarily inherently sinful. It's the content and the lyrics that determine whether or not something is glorifying to God. As these genres of music create avenues for the gospel, I believe Christ would will for us to steward those accordingly. Christ would will for us to use any opportunity we can to share the gospel, so long as we don't compromise it or ourselves in the process. Forrest is setting a great example of both shrewdness and steadfastness in our modern generation, refusing to compromise on the truth for the sake of fame and fortune. Forrest has openly said that he doesn't do this for fame or popularity, even in his songs, and we're witnessing God honor that. All that to say, in today's society, we have access to resources that have never been available before, such as social media, music streaming platforms, and more. If the apostles were able to change the world by word of mouth and by their own 2 feet, imagine the impact we could have for the kingdom today if we utilize the resources that are now available to us. The command to fulfill the Great Commission hasn't changed, but now we have an ability to advance and potentially accelerate that process by several different means. So let's be shrewd with the gifts and resources that we have and use them to change the world for God's glory. We have to remember that as believers, we may not be of the world, but we're certainly in it. Therefore, our goal remains the same. We're not called as believers to isolate ourselves from society. We're called to follow Christ's example, who sat with sinners, and who said to the Pharisees, "It's not the healthy that need a physician, but the sick." If our society offers us and provides for us ways and avenues to share the gospel, we as believers better use them. Thanks for being here again. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon.